Everyone to the November 16th, 2020 edition of Hot Topics. And I want to welcome all of you who are participating via Zoom and all of you who are with us on Facebook Live. Our guest tonight is Dana Edgull. She works at the Monterey County Behavioral Health Department. And gosh, Dana, you've been there for 15, 20 years or so?
25 this year, Jane.
25 years, wow. We did have her on Hot Topics. We were just saying back in May, talking about, mental health issues. And since we're still here and there's evidence of mental health challenges all around us, and in me and around me, we just thought it would be a good idea to have her come back and talk about ways that we can take good care of ourselves and each other, the kinds of programs that the Monterey County Behavioral Health Department is making available, and some of those partnerships in the community. And as usual, I really encourage you, as we're talking, to put any questions you may have in the chat or the question and answer area, and we will answer them kind of as we go when they're natural openings. And we really want your participation. So let us know what you want to hear about. And with that, I think, Dana, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jane. And you've always been such a supporter of mental health, and really for I think over my whole career with behavioral health, you've always been such a supporter, really helping us to get the word out. Because one of the things that is most challenging is the stigma. And I think we've moved away from that a lot. Hopefully, all of us, we all have mental health, right? It's not just something that is with us when we're having challenges, but we all have mental health just like we have our physical health. And just like our physical health, there's things that we can do to take care of our mental health. And I also want to acknowledge that, for a lot of people, they're under extreme amounts of stress that really is unparalleled to what we've experienced before. And so it's requiring a lot of us, myself included, to really think differently about my self-care and how I'm taking care of my mental health, just as I'm taking care of my physical health. And luckily, some of the strategies really go hand in hand. And so there's some positive things that we can learn from these times that we're currently living in, and hopefully bring some new habits into our daily lives. For me, I've been able to increase my physical activity, and I've been doing a lot more mindfulness and meditation, and we'll touch on some of those things. So, we know we're going to evolve and move through this, and life is going to be different, and hopefully there'll be some less stressors in our lives, as we continue to learn more and work together as a society. However, stress will always be a part of our lives, for better, for worse. And so knowing how to cope with stress, as well as some of the emotions that we experience just as being human in the world, really we can come through this challenging time with some more tools in our toolbox. So I created a little PowerPoint just with some talking points. So I'm going to see if I can bring it up for us today. And I'm going to go back to the beginning if I can do that. Let's see from the beginning. Okay. So we're here tonight to talk a little bit about kind of coping during the holidays and beyond. And so we're going to touch on some self-care strategies that folks can use now and into the future. We'll talk a little bit about the holidays that are coming up. I know I've certainly been having some thoughts kind of ruminating around about who am I going to invite, and what about the family dynamics, and how are we going to manage everything, and just some helpful tips. And I'm hoping that people can also share in the chat or in the Q&A, Jane, because there's a lot of wisdom out there in the community, and it's really great to hear things that other people have tried and that might work for them. And then we'll focus a little bit on what we can do there's a lot of things we know we can't do. And at the same time, there are things that we can do. And that's another place that might be helpful to hear from some of the folks that are with us through Zoom. And I don't know if through Facebook they can chat at us, but we'll do our best. And then talk a little bit about how we can sustain hope. And if time allows, I'd really love to walk us through a meditation. So that's what I have planned for us. So we'll go ahead and move, if I can remember how to go through my slides. So let's see. Okay, so just to start us off, a lot of you have been working, taking care of children and family members, and a lot of folks have had a lot on their plate, and some folks might have been enjoying the day. There was beautiful sunshine now where I live. So what we're going to do, just as we get started, I'm just going to encourage everyone to kind of settle into your chair or whatever you might be sitting in. And if you feel comfortable, you can gently close your eyes or leave them open. We're just going to do a few grounding breaths. So I'd like to encourage you to kind of feel your feet on the floor, feel yourself in your chair, and begin to breathe in at your own pace as fully and deeply as you can. Kind of pause at the top of your breath and exhale slowly and completely. Breathe in again, as fully and completely as you can. Feel the air filling your lungs, holding, bringing in that nourishing oxygen, and then exhaling slowly, deeply, completely. And again, please inhale, filling your lungs with that healthy, nourishing oxygen, helping to calm your nervous system, and exhaling slowly, deeply, and fully. And feel free to take one more breath on your own pacing. And then just notice how your body's feeling, and open your eyes if you chose to close them, if you don't mind, and kind of come back to us together. And thank you for those of you who were able to do that with us. I've been including a breathing exercise really in all the presentations I've been doing over the past few months, partly because it's good for all of us. It helps me, even if I'm not able to fully breathe with you all, just the slowing down of our pacing, settling in and paying attention to our bodies. And our breath is one of our most powerful tools that we really have access to all the time. So that's a very positive thing, right? So we don't always remind ourselves that, though. We're rushing from here to there. A lot of folks are jumping on Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, barely having time to make a cup of tea or to take care of our needs. And we're rushing around a lot. So if you can just find 30 seconds a few times a day to do that simple breathing, it helps to slow our nervous system down. So just as we can easily rev ourselves up, if we're mindful, we pause and engage in that deep breathing, it can really help us to slow down. So we're here tonight because there's a lot going on. Our world has been changing in more ways than we ever really had imagined. And it's normal to have a full range of feelings right now. A lot of folks might be feeling some anxiety. There's some grief and loss. There's a lot of things that have changed for us. Some people have lost loved ones and family members, either through COVID or through other causes. I myself lost a dear friend a few weeks ago, unexpectedly. And as we go through life, we're going to experience again stresses and challenges and losses. And we're going to have feelings that come up around those things. And it's not always easy to move into those feelings of discomfort, of grief, of loneliness. But if we push them down, and a lot of times if we don't want to feel our feelings, we can find ourselves doing things like some unhealthy coping. It's not uncommon to want to escape from our feelings. And one real common way that we have in our society is we engage in substances, we drink alcohol, we smoke cigarettes, might overeat or overindulge. And I want to take away any judgment around that. There's no judgment from me to anyone around those kinds of things. And it's kind of human nature to cope in any way that we can. Yet we know that with a lot of those coping say mechanisms, but those things that we bring into our bodies to make ourselves feel better, if they're not healthy for us over the long term, they're not going to have good outcomes. So one of the things that we're going to talk a little bit about tonight is how do we get in touch with some of those challenging feelings, and especially during this time where usually during the holidays we want to look forward to happy times and joyful events, and we still can, though it's going to look different, and there might be some things that we're having some sense of loss over. So how do we balance, and how do we allow time and space for ourselves to get in touch with those emotions that might be a little bit not as comfortable to feel, and how do we move through that so that we can be in a place to engage with other people and be open and allow some space for the joy and the goodness to come in. And as I mentioned before, if we can bring some positive ways of coping into our lives that maybe we hadn't had before, COVID-19 kind of impacted our world and some of the other kind of stressors and things that have been happening in our social and political environment, that we can come through this actually stronger, both as individuals and as families and as communities. So this slide kind of has an acronym called RAIN. And this I borrowed from Tara Brock, and I have a resource to share with you at the end. And Tara has a practice that she walks folks through, and I'll just explain a little bit about it. And I'll share some resources at the end if people wanted to practice this on their own and investigate a little bit more. So RAIN stands for these different concepts, where R is to recognize. So recognize means to recognize what's going on with you emotionally. What am I feeling right now? And sometimes it's helpful to think about a situation that's a little challenging. We don't recommend starting with like a really traumatic situation, but I can just share for myself. I was having a little bit of anxiety about some of my family members who potentially are coming over on Thanksgiving. And one family member in particular causes me a little bit more anxiety. So I was having some conversations with other family members about this, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna practice what I encourage others to do. So I did some settling in for myself and just recognized, okay, what's going on with me? I'm having some anxiety. Where am I feeling that? And allowing that to be present. So for me, I get some tightness in my stomach. I get kind of a tightness up in my chest and in my jaw. I start to have a little bit of fear and worry, and some frustration and some anger, frankly, around some of the dynamics that have happened in the past. And so part of the practice is to just really allow the emotions to be there. Investigate with where do you feel them in your body? What are some of the thoughts that come up for you when you're thinking about this situation and feeling these feelings? And then to really settle in and to think about, what do I need right now? How do I nurture myself so that I can cope with this situation with these feelings? And what Tara recommends is when you move into the nurturing part, to really kind of center in. You can, if it feels comfortable to you, to put your hand on your heart. That helps to kind of stimulate oxytocin and serotonin, positive hormones, and to really kind of send some messages to yourself. So for me in that situation, I need to kind of remind myself that things are going to be okay. Things aren't going to be perfect. And I can love myself in the moment, and I can show some compassion towards my loved one, and just remind myself, it's going to be okay. Things aren't going to be perfect, and just kind of repeat some calming and nurturing messages back to yourself, figuring out what you really need. So Jane, I'll just pause there in case there's any questions or any thoughts that you would like to share. And to take a sip of tea.
Thank you, Dana. I don't see anything in the chat or anything from the questions and answers, but I will just say that, you know, when you were going through the fact that, you know, stress is normal and that there's a lot of change going on, and that brings up different emotions, you know, loss for the things that are gone, anxiety about what may be coming and we don't know. And it especially after doing the breathing exercise and getting myself more, it almost felt like part of me was like melting a little bit, you know, just getting softer. And I could look at myself and realize that these days I seem to have more sort of anxiety or something. It's like a little bit more than normal. And so something will happen that's a fairly small thing, and I'll react like it's a big deal when it isn't really that much of a big deal. And I remember this from the beginning of the pandemic, that it I was like this. Then it's like I got used to things or something, and now for some reason it's going back up again. And so maybe could you talk a little bit about the kind of that's the coming and going of the anxiety or the grief or the loneliness. You know, we've gone for such a long time without kind of normal, what we used to consider normal interactions with people. I mean, there's just so much. And yeah.
And I think, Jen, a lot of people can really relate to what I certainly could relate to what you shared in regards to kind of some of your journey around just kind of coping with and experiencing the challenges that are kind of almost seem to keep coming, you know, at us. And again, that's really normal because we're wired biologically to be alert and aware for threats and dangers. And unfortunately, we've been in a situation for, I'm losing track of time, but, you know, but we're going on about a year now where there's been a real threat, you know, in different ways, you know, but it's there and it's present. So it's going to hit us at different times. I'm curious sometimes for you, what else is going on? Do you find yourself getting, and you don't have to answer these questions, but there's just more things for people to think about, you know, are we looking at, how often are we looking at the news? What are we talking about when we're having conversations? I have a good friend that I walk with, and if we spend all of our time talking about all the challenges that are happening, after I'm done with my walk, I'm maybe a little physical exercise, but you know, that angst is still there. So just being a little bit more aware of what we're bringing in to our thoughts, our environment. I was having a conversation with my mom the other day, and she watches the news like morning, noon, and night, and she's always stressed out, and she's always like, you know, like, Mom, like, you have to give it a break. It's not going to be any different between morning and night. But if you give yourself some time and distance and focus on some other things and things that you enjoy, you know, that can help a little bit. And again, it's just, this is a unique and stressful time. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of easy answers. And it has to do kind of with how we're wired as humans for survival. So why it's even more important than ever that on a daily basis, we're all doing something that helps to nourish our soul, bring in and focus on the positive. We'll talk a little bit later on about gratitude practices. Reflecting on what we're grateful for also brings into our bodies those kind of positive chemicals, the serotonin, the oxytocin. So whatever we can do to help strengthen those neural pathways that bring in the positive input to counteract all the negative input and the anxiety provoking situations. Mm-hmm. I know it's not a kind of easy answer, but does that touch a little bit on what you were?
Yeah, that's helpful. And what it's making me realize is part of the challenge for me is so much of what's going on I can't do very much about. And so as you're talking, I'm realizing you're telling me things that I can do, actions I can take to make a difference, um, instead of focusing on the things where I can't, I don't have much power to make a change. But with myself and my feelings and my thoughts and even the things that I choose to do, I can start to make a difference and feel not so helpless and powerless. So that's great. And we actually do have a question here. Are there any tips that you have for parents on how to talk with children and teens about these things?
So one of the kind of best tips for parents that we really recommend is kind of before getting into conversations with your child or your teen to try and be regulated and calm yourself. So do, a couple like minutes of breathing to get your feelings and your anxiety in check, because we feed off each other, just again as humans. So we're connected. So when a child sees an adult and we're really agitated and anxious ourselves, I hope I'm triggering. Then it's called mirror neuroning, right? So our neurons mirror one another. So we can, be as calm as we can. And with children, with teens, I would take a slightly different approach. Children really need a lot of reassurance. They need reassurance. They need to know that they're safe, that they're cared for, that they're loved. Um, Having routines is really helpful. There's so much going on that we get in Jane, you said we can't control. So what can we control? Try and keep things as, kind of regular and routine as possible. Children really do well. Most children really do well with kind of structure and predictability. And then I think we have as honest conversations as kind of the level of development of your child allows. Um, so we don't want to have any kind of false promises or hopes that we're not sure about, but trying to be hopeful, trying to focus in on what you said, but what can we do as a family? What can I do together with my child? Um, sharing just some small factual information. And we do have some resources on our website for tips for talking with children, kind of at different developmental ages, and I can show you those there as well. And with teens, this is it's stressful for everybody and stressful for our children, but it's really, I think, stressful for our teenagers who right now are developmentally at a place where, they're needing to kind of get away from that family system and individuate and they're really kind of, a lot of them are stuck at home and are, they're at home and without the same access that they had to with their friends and with school. So they have a lot going on. And so I would really encourage you to listen, to try and open up the conversation and to try and listen without judgment and without moving too quickly to fix things, because I'm guilty of this myself. If my son's upset, or he's anxious about, I want him to feel better. I want to take, I want to move right towards a solution, when really they need to talk about what's going on for them, what they're worried about, what they feel that, that they've lost. And sometimes as adults, we tend to minimize, like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's only this, or it's only that. So really try and even if it seems like something that's minimal to us as adults, to try and check that and to just really listen and try and offer as much realistic support and encouragement as you can. And again, focusing on what they do have control over.
That makes sense. I think I must be not far from being a child, because that routine, the structure, the reassurance, I need to give that to myself. So we have another question, and that is, during the pandemic, has Monterey County experienced more mental health needs of the homeless, and has there been more outreach to that population? And what do you know about, and what has behavioral health been doing in that arena?
Sure. Well, certainly there's already a lot of stress and anxiety for individuals who are unsheltered and experiencing homelessness. And we know that in the county, besides the pandemic, we also had our wildfires, we had the poor air quality, we've had a lot of things that have been impacting people that are living without shelter. Now, I don't have statistics in regards to rates, but my best sense would be that with additional stressors um, on folks that are already vulnerable and stressed, that is going to have negative impacts on their mental health, with higher rates of probably depression and anxiety and stress, like post-traumatic stress type of disorders, depending on the level of trauma that folks are experiencing. So, and Monterey County Behavioral Health is very involved with it's not me personally, but Michael Lisman, who works with our adult system of care, and some other folks are very involved, like with the Homeless Coalition. We have been partnering with the different city efforts. Unfortunately, there's been some additional kind of displacement and things as the cities are managing and dealing with some of the issues that arise. And I work closely with some of the folks that are advocating for individuals that are homeless. And so behavioral health is partnering where we can to make sure that behavioral health and social services are going out together and offering resources and supports, as those kind of, I don't call them sweeps, but as kind of the cleanup and things are happening where people are being impacted. So we're actively involved with the Homeless Coalition, and we do go out and offer folks resources and supports.
That's great. And I know that the county has made available shelter for some people who are homeless, who have extra vulnerabilities, more risk, just existing health conditions that put them at greater risk if they were to catch COVID-19. Do you know if there's any outreach or like visits to those folks who are in the alternative housing?
Not off the top of my head, but I do know that we are in partnership and that just things have changed, over time. But behavioral health is part of those efforts. And so I'm not sure, again, the regularity or the frequency or kind of how they're doing screening. But so Monterey County Behavioral Health, we are the public safety net. And so we do provide mental health services for folks that have Medi-Cal, as well as folks that are not insured, that have moderate to severe mental health conditions. And then we work in partnership with Beacon Health Options for folks that have Medi-Cal, that have kind of more the mild to moderate. And so wherever a person touches either behavioral health, Monterey County, or Beacon, again, if somebody has Medi-Cal, they have a right to mental health services. And if folks don't have Medi-Cal, or they're uninsured, or they have private insurance, we depending on the level of need and the resources that are there, we help people navigate and get to the right mental health services for them.
That's great. You mentioned, and I don't know, you may want to go on with your presentation, and you did mention at some point, I think it would be great, you mentioned the resources that are on the website to give people an idea of sort of the developmental stages and what are the things that different aged kids would need or respond well to. Be great if you could share your screen and show us those.
Let me see if I can do this, Jane.
Okay.
Right. This one I did not have pulled up, but I will find it for us.
All right. Because I remember when those, when that came available, it was just really a very comprehensive set of tips and suggestions.
Jane, let me see.
And I think as time goes on and we we need these reminders and this support. It's really great for people to know where to find this good stuff.
So I'll put the link to our website in the chat. I have kind of like a little shortcut where it's www.mtyhd, I'll repeat that for folks on Facebook who can't see the chat, www.mtyhd.org. And then if you do a /BH, that takes you right to our behavioral health webpage. And so you start here. I'll go back to the beginning. And our website is under development. It's getting better. So I always feel a little embarrassed when I show this, but we're making it better. So then you'll see kind of our landing page where we have our 888 number that anybody can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. During the day, one of our bilingual staff answers that call and helps people get to where they need to be. And then after hours, it's answered by a clinician from another county, but they're clinical staff. And so they are therapist type folks that are trained to answer mental health questions. And then here, this link,
you know what, Dana, I'm just going to interrupt you right there. Is that, so we have a question from our Facebook, a Facebook participant, asking whether you, the county behavioral health, offer counseling for families. And I wanted to kind of combine that question with what you're saying about the person who answers the phone and who's, clinically adept. Can anyone in the county who wants to talk to someone, can they call that number?
Yes. So anybody in the county can call that number. I'll share with folks another resource as well that's newish to Monterey County. It's for families and for families where there's a child or person living in the home, I think up to age like 20, 21 or 24. I have the information, but it's a mobile crisis team for children and youth. And so they will provide some short-term crisis stabilization and counseling for everyone in Monterey County. The level of service kind of varies depending, again, on kind of insurance status, but there at least is some, anybody can call, and I'll show folks that number. And that's also 24 hours a day. When it comes to counseling services for families, there is a level of screening and assessment that would happen, but folks can call that 888 number, and if the family is eligible, they'll help them connect with Monterey County Behavioral Health. If for some reason they're not, then they'll help them find resources in the community. So after folks get to our page, we have a link that says COVID-19 resources for coping with mental health. And I'm not bilingual, so I'm not going to try and read the second half of that sentence. But we do have everything on this page in English and Spanish. And so the Spanish resources follow. So here we have some resources for families, parents, and caregivers. So for example, First 5 Monterey County really supports families with young children, kind of pregnant parenting mamas and families up to age 5. So that's a good resource for families with younger children. There's a really good resource in English and Spanish, the California Surgeon General's Playbook, Stress Relief for Caregivers and Kids during COVID-19. And then I won't read through the whole list, but you can see that there's a variety from like a comic book type of approach that might be better, like, but for kind of a young teenager, and then some other resources. Then we follow with some general coping resources for mental health. Helping children cope with emergencies is a good tip sheet. A very simple, cute little book that's developmentally for young children in English and Spanish, kind of taking an example of a cat and walking through the life of a cat and helping to understand, helping folks to through that lens, and some other online phone supports that are available 24/7, a few wellness tips and things, and just continuing connection in times of separation. And then as many resources are available in Spanish, it's mirrored here down below. And then maybe while we're here, Jane, I'll just, because I know we'd like to talk about our Forward Together initiative. We did just wrap this up for this year, but we will be offering another series, just so it's probably good for people to know, because there are additional resources on this page. We've been offering sessions in English and Spanish on a variety of topics that folks will see here. And like I said, we just wrapped up our 3rd session this week. So we won't have anything happening between now and the end of the calendar year, but we anticipate in January we'll restart our series. And on some of the pages, like on New Mom Connect, folks will see some additional resources for pregnant and parenting families and women. A few here. I thought I had more, but there's some. So that's an example of what the page looks like. And if people click on details, they'll see the flyer that has the dates of the session, the topics for that week, and the Zoom link that that folks can click, and as well as information for joining over mobile phone. Do we have? Oh, Jane, you're muted. And oh, thank you. Jenny has put some links in the chat. Awesome. And Jane, did you want to share something else?
Let's see. Let's see, counseling for families. So we did see that there was a family resource on there. And let's see, so here's a question. Are any steps being taken to assist with the mental health of those in the prison system, either inmates or workers, as a result of the pandemic? And it may be most relevant talking about the jail, since that's the county facility, but maybe you know stuff that's going on at either of the state prisons as well.
Unfortunately, I'm not super dialed into that. I do know that we work closely with our correctional system. We have very strong relationships with for example, with our probation partners, working on the children and youth side to do a lot of good prevention work and really to support youth that end up in the criminal justice system, sometimes because of their own underlying mental health conditions that then kind of get them in trouble. So we do a lot of proactive work on that end. And then when individuals enter the county jail, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure of their screening and assessment system. I do know that we in the past have had staff that do go to the jail, and that if we have clients that are already working with us, we continue to support and monitor their mental health. But I believe, and Jane, you may know this, I don't know, I believe the jails kind of have their own system and employees and folks that are there. So again, I know we work in partnership, but it's a little bit of its own unique system. Is that correct, do you think?
Yes, the sheriff's department has a contract with a medical provider that provides physical and mental health. The other thing that I'm remembering as we're talking about this is that the Monterey County Jail, the sheriff's department, has applied to be a mental health facility, because so many people who come into the justice system, if you will, are there because of mental health or substance use issues. And if those can be addressed, then it's easier for people to live a life where they are not running afoul of the law. And the thing that I think the county jails and maybe the prisons as well have discovered over the last 30, 40 years, ever since the mental health institutions, the mental hospitals closed, and people were just supposedly going to be connected to community resources, but the community resources didn't exist enough yet. And so what they're finding is that one of the only ways for people who have mental health issues to get into the health system to start getting their needs met is through they end up getting arrested, and through the assessment process, if it's determined that they have some issues that are not so much criminal, but rather, health or mental health, that they can be kind of moved in that direction. There's an effort to do that. Or if they have committed some sort of infraction that's serious enough that they need to stay in custody, that they can be in an area where they're getting the treatment that they need, rather than just being in a cell with the general population. So yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, and certainly we know that probably the majority of individuals in the in prisons and in our local jail have a mental health condition. And we know that a lot more treatment really needs to be going to those individuals. I was having a conversation with someone last month who had been incarcerated, and he shared how much his life changed. He was here, I believe, in Soledad. And I think at one of their facilities, they offer a fair amount, at least in the past, or when this individual was there, classes and therapy. And a light bulb went off one day for him, and he just really embraced things and was able to be, released. And really, he's just such a testament to the kind of the power of redemption, and that given the right tools at the right time, people can change their lives around, but they have to have access to those tools. And so unfortunately, behavioral health, like Monterey County Behavioral Health, again, doesn't have a lot of influence over the programming that happens in the jails and the prisons. However, we're very active partners with law enforcement and with the Sheriff's Department. I can get back to you if it's helpful with a little bit more specifics about what is currently provided in jail, but I don't know that.
Thank you. Yeah, you don't have to know everything. That's fair.
Good.
Yeah, and I think I know I've read in several different places, and I don't remember the numbers exactly, but they say that a significant portion, more than the majority of people in jail and prisons have had, violence and abuse in their childhood, may have a mental health condition as a result of that, because that trauma can really do stuff to you. Or there could be something that they were born with and never got treatment for. But yeah, just the misdiagnosis that goes on, with people ending up in jail and prison when that's not really their fundamental problem. So.
Right. Yeah. So a very good question. And I'm a strong advocate for providing more supports in those types of institutions. And I think the point kind of that came through the question kind of related to this pandemic, we have to imagine that there's heightened levels of stress and anxiety really for everyone, including the workers. So I would imagine that the folks that work hopefully are getting some help and support, like through their EAP or educational, like employee assistance programs. So I would think that or through their private insurance. So that would be probably the entities that would be taking care of mental health needs coming forward in those areas.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Although too, I know that sometimes in those kinds of professions, it's considered, the stigma is definitely there, that, getting help and support for yourself for stress that comes with the job, even in the best of times, working in those kinds of jobs is quite stressful. And then you've got all these other factors on top. And I think a challenge for folks in law enforcement and other kinds of professions is that they don't want to be seen as unwell or weak, and so they may deprive themselves of the kind of support that could help them stay healthy.
Yeah, as we reflect about last week being Veterans Day, and I did a little bit of social media posting, and really the message that I wanted to get out there was like, you deserve the best. You're making sacrifices of yourself. And one could say that about many of the professions that you just touched on, folks that are working in law enforcement and first responders and military. It's like, and they're under a lot more stress in their work related to the different things that they're doing. And so they really deserve the best, and they deserve the best care and help and treatment. And I'd love to come back some other time. We could talk a little bit more about veterans issues. There's actually a lot more resources and support out there. So we'll have those on a specific veterans page on our website. So yes, but again, why it's important, why we're having these conversations, because just because you put on a uniform, be it a military uniform or a sheriff's uniform or law enforcement, that does not give you a magic shield from the trauma that you likely will be experiencing sorry, I'm looking at the chat too. So how many calls did you? So I'm not sure if that question is about calls to our behavioral health line, the 888 number. Jenny, if we could
maybe try starting there, and if that isn't what the person.
And I'll be honest, I don't have
ask again.
I don't have that information, those statistics off the top of my head. But we do have some data from our local crisis line where we do keep track. On a positive note, we have seen increases in the number of people that are calling our crisis lifeline, our suicide prevention line, because that's a good thing. That means that people are reaching out for help, and we are seeing the age start earlier, meaning that younger folks are calling. And it would take me a minute to find those statistics, but calls have increased. I know that we have 2,500 calls roughly last year, and calls are increasing. Again, we think that's good. And the age at which folks are reaching out is getting younger. So that tells us that our little ones are also experiencing stress where they need some help and support. So Jane, we have about 13 minutes left. So I'm trying to think about what the best use of our time is. I can share just maybe a couple of tips, kind of focusing back a little bit around as we move towards our holiday time.
I was going to say, yeah, some tips to help us as we, because it's going to be strange holidays, because even the guidance that we were giving a couple weeks ago about how to do holiday gatherings may not be possible.
Right, right. So really important to kind of go back to what we talked about a little bit, just to really let yourself feel those feelings that you're feeling. It's a balance though, because if we stay in a place where we are ruminating over the same thoughts and thinking about the losses and everything that we can't do, that's going to start to have a negative impact on us. So I would recommend being mindful, taking some time, allowing yourself to have those feelings, and then really focusing in on nurturing yourself. What do you need? What messages can you give back to yourself? Who in your life is there for you that's positive? And have some balance with that. So allowing your feelings to be there, balancing things with having some way to kind of refocus and bring some positive feelings back towards yourself and to people in your lives. And to reach out if you're feeling lonely or isolated, to seek out community. Some people are connected to faith institutions or religious institutions or other types of communities. And a lot of folks have gone virtual and have things available online. So sometimes we get tired of them, but I have to say, Jane, it's been nice having a cup of tea with you tonight, and having a conversation. We have a bit of a connection, and people are hopefully, joining us and feeling a sense that, okay, you're not alone in what you're feeling and kind of in what we're going through. And just kind of by knowing that we're not alone, that we're connected together in this. I know it doesn't take away the loss and the pain, but it can help a little bit. And if you're finding yourself, not sure about where you're going to be over the holidays, maybe there's somebody that you can reach out to and you can schedule some time to be together. I was reading about a suggestion just to kind of have, uh, FaceTime just happening kind of naturally. And you don't always have to be like in this video, kind of intense video, but just, kind of have it on as you're almost like you would be kind of unwinding at the end of the day, chit-chatting over a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and just kind of having some presence there so that we're not alone. It's almost like sometimes people have like the TV on in the background, but we can also think about things that might be going on that are a little bit more positive, because sometimes that TV, as we talked, the news starts going, the negativity. So to think about what is available, to try and schedule some time and be intentional in that. And then to think about maybe some new traditions that you can create. Can you make a favorite playlist of your favorite holiday tunes and share it all in a group, and kind of listen to it at the same time? So I would say try and do things that you can have a sense that you're doing them together with other folks, even if you're not actually in the same room. And then I have some little tips, and I'll share this article. It's from the Mayo Clinic. Just some things that kind of can help us feel better. Also can be when we're giving to others. So are there any volunteer opportunities? Again, I know it's going to be different. There's a lot of folks who are used to maybe going out and helping at holiday meal times, but I learned, for example, Interim Incorporated, that is a great partner for behavioral health. They're going to be giving out holiday meals, and they're giving out socks. And so I put them away before a little talk, but I ordered some socks from Amazon. I'm going to go, donate some little socks to folks. And then that helps me to feel better. There's been a lot of studies showing that when people give, we almost get more benefit. We get a different level of benefit. Research shows serotonin starts happening when we give to others, when we give of ourselves. So it can be a small donation. It can be of our time. Maybe there's somebody in your neighborhood that actually, gotta be careful what I'm suggesting, but I'm thinking about people that maybe we know, or maybe living by themselves, or maybe we're a little bit concerned for them. You could drop a little note to them, or drop a little card, just something that helps people to know you're not forgotten. I see you, and I care about you. Ways that we can do that. And then just being this holiday season, being realistic. This is going to be a different time. And we know that we're not always going to be in this type of a situation. So kind of accepting what is, being realistic, and knowing that that this year is going to be a different year. And we're going to try and focus on whatever little gems that help us to feel positive, and have some ways of having some of those traditions that we've had in our households. And then when it comes to family members, really trying to accept our family members and friends as they are, even if they don't live up to all of our expectations. This is one for me. Kind of set aside grievances, and just kind of try and just be present with what shows up, and also to really think about, what do you appreciate in that person? So rather than thinking about all the negative things and all the things that disappoint you, what do you feel positive about? The last time you saw them, was there anything that they said or did, or in the past? So try and really focus on the things that you're grateful for in your relationships. And then other just tips or things about boundary setting, sticking to our budgets, managing things. Don't feel like this is a time where we've got to now go out and buy a bunch of things and send stuff out. A little bit of that's okay, but if it's going to hurt your budget at the end of the day, that's a stressor that you don't need. So, if you have a little more time on your hands, maybe you can do some crafting or make some things, and then that has that personal touch. And being able to have boundaries and saying no when things when you start to feel, okay, I'm saying yes because I'm feeling obligated to do this. Try and be mindful and pay attention to that, and know it's okay to say no, and to take care of yourself. And then just making sure that we're doing all the good healthy stuff, that we're eating as healthy as we can, we're getting as much physical exercise as we can for our bodies and our environments. Good sleep, there's nothing like a good night's sleep. And so just getting our good rest, eating all the good stuff. Again, what helps our bodies helps our minds. And then if you need a break, to take a break. Everybody's family situation is going to be different. Some people might have a household full, and they might feel really overstimulating, and and a lot's going on. So just give yourself permission, even a 5-minute break, to go put some good music on or do something that helps you to feel just connected and grounded. And then if you find that, you're just not feeling right, you're feeling like you can't do the things that you usually do or you typically do. So we in the clinical world, it's like it's impacting your daily functioning. If you're not able to get out of bed in the morning and kind of get on with your day at a reasonable time, if you find yourself worrying night after night after night and not getting a good night's sleep, if you're starting to have panic attacks, things that aren't typical for you. Well, anytime you have a panic attack, you want to get some help, but panic attacks happen. Most people will experience one in their lives. That's not uncommon. Still good time to check in with your primary care doctor, with a therapist. Last time I was here, Jane, I shared, I think, a list of online resources for telehealth and mental health. So I'll make sure that I do that. So the folks have access to that. So really important to know that if you're not feeling like yourself, you're not able to function like you typically do, you're not enjoying the things that you used to, you're not taking care of yourself, or you're having a hard time taking care of your family, if that's your role, it's really a time to reach out and get some professional help for yourself. We're almost at the end of our time. I had a whole loving kindness meditation prepared that I was going to walk us through, but I'll share just real quick my screen because, oopsie, not that one. Oh no, here it is. Okay. And we'll post this on your website, or you can share this. So there's a link to that article. There's a really cool website all exploring different random acts of kindness. Again, kindness benefits you and the person that you're being kind towards. There's some great free resources at mindful.org. I connected folks to the loving kindness meditation, so we didn't get a chance to do that right now, but there's a connection. And also, if you want to hear Tara Brock walk through the RAIN practice in an actual kind of guided way. And then coming back in 2021, we'll have more classes for the Forward Together. So I'll send all that to you so you can post it, and I will also include some additional mental health resources and supports.
That's great. Thank you. There really is a lot out there. And the thing is, I don't pay much attention when I'm feeling pretty well. And then when I'm feeling the effects of, things, then I'm sort of, just kind of underwater enough that I'm like, there isn't anything. Where do I find it? So I really appreciate you making these available. People will be able to see them if they go on to Facebook Live and watch again. And then of course we will post these things so that they're available for the community. One thing I wanted to just say is, we have Thanksgiving coming up. And what you were saying about when we can do something kind for someone else or give to someone else, that it takes us out of our doldrums and our muck, and we end up getting maybe almost more benefit than the person that we're giving to. And I think that's a really neat thing to remember as we're going into Thanksgiving. And of course, gratitude, that's what Thanksgiving is, giving thanks. And that's another thing I find amazingly effective when I'm feeling just kind of bleh or cranky. If I just start thinking about 3, 4, 5 things that I'm grateful for, it really shifts my mood. And so I think those things are kind of helpful and very apropos with the season. So.
Jane, I'm really grateful for this opportunity. You've given me many over the years, and I'm grateful that I could join you on your hot topic tonight. I'm not sure how many more you'll be doing, and with everything else going on, I'm not sure that the transition's happening, but I know that Wendy is also a very strong supporter of mental health, and we work together on many efforts. So it's been a pleasure to work with you. And again, I appreciate all the opportunities that you've given to me to share this type of information with our community, because it's so important. And if we don't talk about it, you know, people aren't going to know things out there. People will think that they're the only ones. And one of the strongest messages, if I could say, is you are not alone. And if you're experiencing any mental health challenge or a problem, you are not alone. Most of us in our lifetime will, and people get better. And a lot of us need a little bit of help and treatment and support, and it's out there. It's not always easy to access, I know that. So we're happy to try and help and working together to try and bring more mental health resources to the community at all levels, private and public, and needs to be more. So anyways.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Really appreciate all the work that you've done over the years. And, you know, you're one of the examples of the kind of person who comes to work for the county and just keeps finding more and more ways to be creative, find what is needed in the community, make it happen, get it, you know, get the word out there. It's really critical, that sense of public service, and you're a great example of it. So thank you for all of your work. And I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening for Hot Topics. Our guest was Dana Edgull, who works with the Monterey County Behavioral Health Department, and she's been sharing some great tips and some excellent resources, many of which are free for us to take good care of our mind, our emotions, our bodies. It's all connected. So next week is Thanksgiving week, so we will not have Hot Topics, but we'll be back the following week. And so I want to wish everyone a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Take care.